1, 2, 3, 4. Ay, 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 ay. Good. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. One more time. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. Es el lunar que tiene el cielito lindo junto a la boca. No se lo des a nadie, cielito lindo que a mí me toca. Es el lunar que tiene el cielito lindo junto a la boca. No se lo des a nadie, cielito lindo que a mí me toca. Here we go. Ay, 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 ay. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. One more time. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. Si tu mamá te dice cielito lindo, cierra el pórtico. Hasta que no la oyes, cielito lindo, y vente conmigo. Si tu mamá te dice cielito lindo, cierra el pórtico. Hasta que no la oyes, cielito lindo, y vente conmigo. Here we go. Ay, ay, canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. One more time. And they yell, and they yell. Oh. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. Es el lunar que tiene el cielito lindo junto a la boca. No se lo des a nadie, cielito lindo que a mí me toca. Es el lunar que tiene el cielito lindo junto a la boca. No se lo des a nadie, cielito lindo que a mí me toca. Here we go. Ay. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. Here we go. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran cielito lindo los corazones. Oh gosh, you guys are great. Okay. Okay, you want to go on tour with me? So now you see that all these groups, even though we claim people try to put us in these back together, but there are differences, you know. And what's nice is that, you know, we recognize these differences too. And right now, what's interesting in Milwaukee, for example, you'll find a lot of intermarriages between Mexicans and Puerto Ricans. And the reason for that is because the Mexican community has been in Milwaukee since 1920, actually 1920. And the reason for that is because in Milwaukee, Pfister and Bogle was going through a strike. And they went down to the border and hired 100 Mexicans. And actually they used them as skags. you know, to break the strike, and they actually to keep the factory working. And so these 100 people came up, and then what happened is that when the strike was done, they actually, Pfister and Vogel hired them as regular employees, and they began to actually send for their families. And so, you know, they sent for them, and by the 1925, there were close to about 800 to 1,000 Mexicans in Milwaukee, you know, and they all settled in the near South Side. If you go to Milwaukee, you know, on the National Avenue around there, that's where you find. And what's interesting is that as Puerto Ricans began to come in the late 40s, early 40s and late 40s, and so did the other groups, they also began to settle, even though Puerto Ricans mostly settled in Milwaukee, especially near the African American community. You remember I talked about that affinity or relating to African Americans? Puerto Ricans tend to do that, okay? So they settled closer to the African American community till there was a disruption where they had to move because they were building some kind of freeway, which never happened. So a lot of the Puerto Ricans actually moved to the South Side, to the near South Side, within the Mexican community, you know. And again, the reason they moved there was because they felt that they would be more accepted. Not only that, but, you know, you have to realize in our community, even though we promote English and we strongly believe that everybody should learn English, a lot of people live there. And my mother was here, for example, for 30 years. She never learned English. And the reason was because in our community in Chicago, her doctor was Cuban, the pharmacist spoke Spanish, who was Puerto Rican. You know, I mean, you know, there was no need for her to learn the language because everywhere she went within that neighborhood, people spoke her language, you know. And to my, you know, surprise, we still find people like that today, you know, who come to the United States and they want to succeed, you know, but if they don't know English, they're not going to, you know. So we promote the learning of English, you know, and it's great to be bilingual, by the way. Like I said, it's really great to be bilingual, I tell you. And there's so many advantages to being bilingual, but again, we need to keep promoting the language, the English, because, you know, we need to keep promoting the language as much as possible, you know, especially English to learn. And that's why, you know, the thing is with the high schools, we have some of the, I don't know if you know this, Wisconsin has some of the highest death rates for babies, African American babies in the world, in the United States, by the way. Not the birth rate, mortality. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's the word. Mortality has. Pardon? Okay. Milwaukee is really bad. I was just at a conference the other day, and they had this. Actually, the dean of the School of Education from UWM gave a 5-minute talk, and she says, we are almost at a third world. We're just as bad as a third world country in Wisconsin, and especially around the Milwaukee County, where the mortality rate for African American children is so bad. Okay, we're beginning to see more diabetes, more high blood pressure, you know, against not just African Americans but Latinos also. So there's a need, you know, for that. We as Latinos, you know. And I need to go back a little bit, is that we are bicultural. We are bilingual, not only that, which we have an advantage, but we are also bicultural, which also is, you know, what's nice. And what's nice about I like doing presentations like this is that we can also find out that, again, music, and I go back to the beginning, music is a universal language where we can find out, and actually, you know, classical music. Who likes classical music? There's classical music in Puerto Rico, in Mexico, in the United States, you know. So there's all, you know, in Russia, you know. So again, you know, like for example, salsa right now is, you know, or even rap music is all over the world, you know. So you see music actually reaches out, you know, and it touches everybody. And I just use it to explain a little bit better about understanding Latinos in the U.S. and Latinos, you know, all over the Wisconsin. Thank you so much.